Hey, this is Will Buchanan. I'm walking all the way across the country to the New Hampshire seacoast in search of more freedom on a project called the Walk for Liberty. Today is December 22nd, 2008, day 217. Well, not quite, but almost. There's only about 60 miles left to the seacoast. And even then, my journey will just be getting started. And during that journey, I've sometimes wondered, are people friendlier in places where there's more freedom? In my walk across the country, I often like to wave at people who are driving by or who I see alongside the road. I obviously have only encountered a relatively small cross-section, but yet there still have been a lot of people I've waved to as I've walked across the country. When I was out west, and especially in the less populated states, such as Montana and the Dakotas, almost everybody driving by would wave at me. People also seemed more helpful, and I would get far more offers for rides than in the East. I think my single-day record was 7 offers of rides when I was walking through an Indian reservation in South Dakota. As I walked further east, I would get offered fewer and fewer rides. And even though many people would still wave at me, it sometimes seemed as if they were doing it just to be polite. And of course, we were also snitched on further east. Not only in supposedly public places where we were trying to park our RV for the night, but also in New York, someone was uncomfortable and called the cops on me because I was filming things. But even though we're even further east now, that seemed to change once we entered New Hampshire. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that New Hampshire is the freest state in the country. People here in New Hampshire just seem friendlier. For example, today, almost everyone who I waved at waved back at me. And seemingly not just out of politeness. For many who waved did so enthusiastically and often gave me a nice smile. And some even waved at me first. Now, I often get this kind of reception if I've had recent newspaper or TV coverage and people recognize me. However, I haven't had any mainstream media coverage in New Hampshire. The last newspaper that featured me was in Brattleboro, Vermont, and I'm well out of their coverage area by now. Another thing is that I don't try to hide the fact that I'm filming. In the past, sometimes I've gotten weird looks, or, as I mentioned, even been snitched on for filming. However, here, people often smile and wave at me after they see me filming. So why would it be that people would be friendlier in places where there's more freedom and less government? Perhaps in places where there's more government, The government insidiously breeds mistrust among people. It certainly has an incentive to do so, as that's an excuse for it to exercise more control over people. If everybody mistrusts everybody else and thinks anyone around the corner might be a criminal or terrorist, then many will naturally look to the government for protection. So government is incentivized to breed that kind of fear between people. I remember in a place with one of the biggest governments in the world, New York City, the government there had an advertising campaign in subways and other public locations which said, "If you see something, say something. Be afraid. Be very afraid." Not exactly a good way to engender friendliness among people. In places where there's less overbearing government, though, like New Hampshire, people's natural kinship to their fellow humans comes out. And they tend to authentically be more kind, helpful, and friendly. I walked 17 miles for liberty today. Here are my GPS coordinates. If you do any of your shopping online, please purchase through amazon.walkforliberty.com, and a percentage of your purchase will go to help support the Walk for Liberty. Amazon, Amazon, Amazon.walkforliberty.com. This is Will Buchanan, signing off. Hey! The dogs seem friendly too.